Okay, so I think we can start at least presenting the team, the objectives of the day. So hello everybody, I'm Valentina Vassori from FVA New Media Research. So we are in charge of the communication, dissemination, and stakeholder engagement in a culture project. Today with me there are Luis Ferrini, Susanna Albertini, and Selena Marinelli that will help me moderating and facilitating the events today. So briefly presenting you the objectives of the day. Luis, if you can switch the slide and the agenda. So the objectives of the day are to raise awareness on EU policy framework and strategy for sustainable seaweed biomass provision, and to understand the current and future seaweed biomass availability and demand scenarios in Europe. Also to understand research and innovation contribution to algal biomass sustainability, we will include some of the research we are developing in our iCULTURE project. And then also we will hear from you for algae, the innovation ecosystem for the EU algae sector. So thanks to our keynote speakers, we will first cover all these topics, and then we will hear the voices of all the participants today, collecting your inputs on the needs, barrier, gaps, and particularly we are very keen to see your solutions and recommendations to inform research, stimulate policy dialogue, and inform with preliminary recommendations sustainable seaweed management. So today is organized basically in three sessions with keynote speakers focused mainly on policy, so setting the scene and the policy framework, on R&I contributions in ensuring seaweed biomass sustainability, and also the point of view of industries and investment for sustainable seaweed sector in Europe. After that, there will be this interactive session, as I was anticipating, where all the voices of the participants will be heard. So I think that with further ado, we can start.
In this first block, we would like to set the scene, and specifically, we would like to hear the voice of the European Commission to understand what is the policy and governance framework. And for this reason, I give the floor to Maris Stulgis from DG Mare. So Maris, the floor is yours. I hope everything works with you.
Yes, hello, good morning, and many thanks, Susanna, for kind introduction. Yeah, maybe, okay, I will present in 10 minutes, but maybe it's not exactly what you expect, as I told you. Okay, please, next slide. Yeah, maybe just to tell that, yeah, in the European Commission, I'm in charge of the blue bioeconomy and algae files. So driving these policies within the EU further. Okay, I would like to start that we are all among the same page if we speak what is the sustainable provision. And we have to take into account that we have now the decades of marine ecosystem degradation. And we know that quite big percentage, we are speaking about 50% of the marine ecosystems, including seaweed, seagrass, shellfish, have disappeared so far. So sustainable, in simple words, actually means status quo, maintaining status quo, not doing the harm. And then if we look what already is there in the ocean, we see the algae blooms, we see the degraded areas, we see the sea urchins degrading huge seaweed forests. So status quo means we would like to keep this as it is. So I don't think it's our objective. So that's why, yeah, we are looking more into the restorative and regenerative ocean developments. Next slide. We have a lot of different human-driven pressures that have impact on ocean health, and they are. We can say that they are complementary and even mutually reinforcing each other. And then these different impacts, which is climate change and pollution, which is extraction and disturbance, which then leads to the habitat loss and ecosystem degradation. And this directly impacts our companies and livelihoods in Europe, including the fishers, including the blue economy actors. DG Environment has quantified that 72% of the EU SMEs are directly depending on nature. This is nature in general, but including, of course, marine ecosystems. So next. Yes, we are seeing more and more these headlines in the mass in the press, that there are heat waves, that for instance, like in Norway, sea urchins are destroying kelp and entire ecosystems with it, that marine heat waves are reshaping ocean life. And this is true, what you see on the screen. Yeah, we have quite huge seaweed forests, and very little of that is utilized. But we have to take into account the other side of the coin. And then this is that we have at least 30 to 50% of seaweed kelp forest degraded or declining, which means that big amount of these 100 million tons might be not available. And that currently up to 60% there is a loss of canopy forming algae in the Mediterranean Sea and significant regional declines in Atlantic and Baltic Sea. Next. So if we speak about seaweed biomass provision, what options do we have currently? Of course, our current main option is wild harvesting. Yeah, we know that this is traditional activity for decades in few EU member states, that this is science-based, and there are these zoning strategies and so on. But the difference with the farming, even the sustainable, like simple seaweed farming, is that these strategies, they do not add the additionality, which means that the seaweed farming, when seaweed are put in sea, that they add the capacity to remove excess nutrients and carbon and supports the biodiversity formation. But we need to go one step further, to go to the restorative seaweed farming, where together with producing and cultivating biomass to make products, there is also the restoration of the overall ecosystem around this, the seaweed farm. Next. So what policies do we have? So you have seen this, I will not touch upon, but I would just like to point out that the European Commission has elaborated and adopted in 2022 the EU Algae Initiative that is aiming to boost the EU algae cultivation in Europe and developed markets, acting in 4 action areas that you can see on the left top. But this is not a standalone initiative. It is integrated also in our aquaculture policies. It is integrated within the EU bioeconomy strategy. We are working together with the various Commission DGs, including agriculture and health and grow and so on. But we also work closely with the national authorities, either dealing with aquaculture or bioeconomy strategies or maritime spatial planning. So this is the very collaborative work that we are having to really advance. It's important, of course, the awareness raising. You have heard about Algae Awareness Summit. That is, quite great event to raise awareness. There are communication campaigns like aquaculture communication campaign and more. And then our main interface towards the EU algae sector is the European Algae Stakeholder Platform, EU for Algae. And Laura will, I understand, present this in a few moments. Next. These are like the DG Mare focused, but of course this fits within the broader EU policy framework. And then we have more and more policies that are focusing on nature restoration and putting in place specific targets, like nature restoration law mandates restoring 20% of degraded habitats by 2040 and 60% by 2030 and then 60% by 2040. Biodiversity strategy envisages the protection of 30% of EU seas. European Ocean Pact outlines the support to the regenerative business models, especially in coastal communities such as low trophic aquaculture. And this is expected to bring the win-win solutions to everyone, to the economies, to the people, to the nature. Next. I'm running through the slides, but I try to fit within time. Yes, next. So this is another new policy, comparably new, because it was adopted in last year. And this is nature credits system. And It's DG Environment Policy, and it was adopted in 25, and it has developed a EU Nature Credits Roadmap, aiming to mobilize private finance for biodiversity. The main objective is to close the EU biodiversity financing gap, which is estimated at 37 billion a year. So we'll see how we succeed on that. But if that is succeeded, this will be fed into the local community business models, hopefully. And then there are opportunities for seaweed farming, like supporting nature positive activities, developing new revenue streams, and supporting the activities like coastal restoration, regenerative aquaculture. And then the added value is, of course, for the Europe is implementing these policies, strengthening coastal economies, developing low carbon nature-based solutions. And of course, the key success for, and now for myself, maybe some, yeah, somebody is not muted. So and of course we need to be credible here, and we need to have the robust monitoring and verification technologies and systems in place. We need to prove the additionality, that there are additional added value created for the local communities. We have local strong standards and safeguards that ensure this credibility. Next. So what we do from our side, these are just few examples of regenerative ocean farming, how the European Commission is trying to promote regenerative ocean farming development across the countries and different coastal communities and blue economy actors. These are just few project examples. Next. Again, these are few that are really great examples how to create business and at the same time restore marine ecosystems. You have seen, maybe you have heard these, but these are really, really good examples. Next, my time is ending up. And then, just to conclude, that Commission will continue to develop and support these policy developments for seaweed farming and marine ecosystem restoration, to implement EU algae initiative, to implement targets, to support investments and innovation, to work together with stakeholders, and also support the scaling up regenerative business models, like, for instance, with financial institutions like European Investment Bank and so on. Thanks. That's really running through my slides, but thank you very much. I did my best.
Thanks, Maris. It was a great introduction. So now we have an overview of the position of the European Commission. And our second speaker will continue on describing what is the governance perspective. And she is Céline Rebour from Morforsking. And she will, building on the JRC study, EU biomass supply uses and governance and regenerative action, where she authored a chapter related to seaweed with the JRC researcher, provide this governance overview. So Céline, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you for having me. Yeah, you can, so you just say that. So can you, next, please. Yes, so first, I just want to say I'm not part of DG Mare. I'm a researcher. I work in Norway, French origin. I'm located south of Trondheim in the city of Ålesund. Our institute is a non-profit private institution. So we are working very closely with businesses, and we work throughout the value chain. So we have colleagues covering from environmental survey to final product and consumer behavior. Next, please. So we know that's the situation worldwide. The seaweed industry is aquaculture based worldwide, and it has increased a lot in the 90s, 2000. But since a little over 10 years now, it has a little inclination, and it has difficulty to maintain this exponential growth we saw in the 90s and the 2000 until 2000. Yeah, you can see 14, 16, and that has to do with, I think, increased awareness of environmental condition of seaweed farming, also reduced space for seaweed farming to produce healthy and nice seaweed products. The country that we are producing, where we know the Asian country, and has different factor intervened. So there is still a high demand in seaweed products. So Europe is trying, next please, is trying to catch part of this. And for even before those strategy I'm presenting here, Europe has spent several, I think, a little over a decade to try to promote seaweed aquaculture development and exploitation of our seaweed resources in a sustainable way. So there are many policy, there are new policy coming, and Maris just presented it, so we can go to the next. But there's been a long-term effort through policy, so strategy, policy. There are some regulation that are supporting seaweed aquaculture development or seaweed exploitation, but there are also money put in. So that was the result of the Horizon 20 program that supported 116 projects with algae. So it's not just seaweed, it's also support on the microalgae. But today there is, I checked the number, I think it's 68 project for the Horizon Europe, and 5 are already planned to also start on algae. So there is money, and also Blue Invest Fund is supporting companies. So 97 companies got support from the EU directly to develop their business, to reach higher TRL, meaning 9. That's what we want. So 26 today got this funding to succeed to finalize their value chain. So it's a very it's continuing. This is the report that was published last year. So of course, when Horizon Europe will be finished, we will know more about this. So next, please. So as you say, there is another way. Europe, besides plain research project, direct financing to companies, also spending a lot of money on the demanding experts around Europe to produce scientific report that summarize the knowledge. So part of this presentation is based on the work I do with the GRC. My colleague Javier Sanchez, we have done this review on the statistic available for the production in Europe of seaweed. This is not only about this, is also the other one done with the CINEA was an overview on different topic and climate change and feed. So there are many scientific reports that are helping the European Union to develop their policy science-based, because that's how Europe function. Next, please. And of course, as Maris said, the EU initiative is supposed to gather all this information, make it more digestible for businesses to develop or newcomer, or because it's a very complex system to navigate. It's a multi-sectorial activity. There is many policy, and then there is national policy. So it's a complex sector because algae or macroalgae cover different sector of activity, which are traditionally regulated separately. So let's look now at the production in Europe. So next, please, we are dominating, we are a good player worldwide, but China passed Norway last year. So China and Chile are the main producer, but the European are good player harvesting seaweed. Europe is Europe is mainly Norway and Iceland. They have a long tradition, but France is also an important player in harvesting, and Ireland. So that's about 25% of the world harvested seaweed that are harvested in Europe for 80 years in some case, so almost a century, in a sustainable manner in most of the country. Next. So the species harvested is Laminaria hyperborea, Ascophyllum nodosum, and Laminaria digitata. That's the main bulk, but there are other species. Depending, if you're in Estonia, in the Baltic, you will harvest more Fucellaria, which is coming on the beach as a rack seaweed. But we also have Undaria pinnatifida that was imported through accident through the oyster or voluntarily in the 80s in the French lake to develop its aquaculture. So it's here. It's now go naturally occurring in Brittany, and it's harvested. But it's a non-endemic species. It's not a European species initially. We also have a report of green species, but that's a bulk of chlorophysae. So we assume it's ulva or monostroma. We don't know. There is no name of species. That's the problem we have with our statistic. They are not precise enough, and the name, I look again this week, they keep changing and leave too much place to interpretation. So they need a stronger reporting system that we name correctly our species to be able to run statistic and to provide management plan. Next. So aquaculture starting in 95, as I say, in France. The later player coming in is the Faroe Islands. The species we are producing is Saccharina latissima, Undaria pinnatifida, because this aquaculture is authorized in France, and Alaria esculenta. We have few other species like Ulva, Palmaria, Gracilaria, but they are smaller volume. Next. So the country today that dominates the Europe is Ireland. They have developed quite a lot the production in the, you can see the double since 2021. I don't have the data are not reported yet for 24, 25. We can discuss how we get those data, but that's improvement need to be done here. So some of the data you can see are marked with an E, and that means they are estimate, because it's not, that's estimate, and some countries have not reported their data. We know Italy has produced in the past. They are mentioned as it should be a data here, but there are no data, and then Spain has not yet reported their data for 23. That's why there is a star and a 0. So those numbers are to take with precaution, and as we advance in time, but you see I'm behind already 5 years to have good data, so it's can be tricky to manage a business when you have a data that has so much delay between in the time frame. So, but you can see it's most likely increasing across Europe. EU 27, through the strategic effort, you can see it's taking more and more of the production, but it's also because the species produced in Norway, and I guess in the Faroe Islands, I'm more familiar with Norway, is they have difficulty to find their customer, and it's often a mono market for a few years, and then it changes again. So there is a little mismatch between what we can produce and what people want. So it needs maybe to be adjusted. And then and also some countries do not report. UK does not report. We know they are producer. Sweden do not appear in the statistic, but we know, I heard indirectly, or they claim some company have produced about 100 tons. So there are a lot of data that are missing, and it's very important to work also on this reporting per country, because those data report what they are selling, not what they are producing. Like in Norway, there is triple standing here, unsold seaweed. So it's very important to maybe adjust both the reporting of what is really produced and also the seaweed that can be sold to a market. Next is the price. So this, I think it's, I did this work with the economist, Javier Sanchez, in this report. We can see that Spain is a very smart player. If you see the price per ton, so we just produced in 2022, 5 tons, and they earn a lot of money compared to, so that's data we have available through the database. It could be also mistake of reporting, but there is a point here. We see France has a quite better price per kilo, per ton, sorry, and that means it has to do with their diversity of seaweed too. They are not just brown seaweed, they have France is producing a larger variety of species. So this is something to consider when you develop a business, is to look at the demand, because we developed the business with what we could produce easily and to demonstrate the capacity for production, and they were a certain market 20 years ago when we started the adventure. But I think that's the problem. Maybe the seaweed industry is today meeting, is to find the right market, the right price to cover their expenses. So I thank you for next slide. So this is my colleague and I working through the seaweed value chain. So you can see from environmental monitoring to the final stage where we have social scientists looking at the consumer attitude, but also we are feeding people with seaweed. But we work, in all part. Our focus is helping businesses to develop their businesses. Yeah. Okay. So thank you.
Many thanks,
Céline.
Céline. I give the floor to Valentina for the second part.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add one thing. If you have questions for the speaker, feel free to write them in the chat. So maybe if you can eventually respond, it would be great. We can also collect them during the interactive session, by the way. So next speaker I'm honored to present is Elena Abreu, the Algae AD and Partnership Manager at European Algae Biomass Association, that will present IABA perspective and seaweed biomass availability and future demand scenarios. So Helena, the floor is yours. Thanks for accepting the invitation.
Thank you. And first of all, good morning. I apologize in advance for this potential low quality of the call, as I'm in a commuting journey, not foreseen. So thank you to the project for inviting ABA to this workshop. And thank you, Maris and Céline, for the previous presentations, because we are touching many of the same points instead. So I'll be presenting a bit of the clues of what we are doing, EABA, and some of the bottlenecks that we have identified together. So next slide, please. I'll try to go fast. Next slide. Yeah. So briefly introducing EABA, the association was established in Firenze in Italy in 2009. It's not just an industry association, but it intends to be a coordination platform among the micro and macro algae stakeholders, promoting advocacy. We have several working groups tackling some of the main sector worries, and we intend to be a unified voice with the Commission. And now, more recently, also we are structuring the engagement with national associations. Next slide, please. So, next slide. Hello. Yes. So about it. So we are around 243 members from 40 countries, over 50% from industry, followed by scientific, observing, and individual members. Next slide. Next. These are mostly these members recognize these several benefits that I will not list here of being an EABA member. So I'm asking you, if your organization or yourself, you're not part yet of the association, you're losing a lot. So please get in touch so we can work together. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, and to know more, please check our website, where you can find some of our activities, and including the AlgaFlix, where you can actually upload, even from this workshop, we can upload the videos and presentations so that we can disseminate it through the members. Next slide. So I won't go into this, but one of the activities that makes us more proud is the EU for Algae platform, and Laura will be presenting that later. And we have several of our working groups, namely the novel food groups, the regulation working groups that are active in producing some of the outcomes that you see here listed. And the ongoing priorities are really the actions on the 3 axes of the novel food catalog, and also the work on the standards for contaminants in seaweed biomass. Next slide, please. So as mentioned before, as an effort to helping organize a bit more coherent European conversation, last February, we organized the first roundtable with national associations, more industry-oriented associations, and the intention is really to increase cooperation, discuss bottlenecks, but mainly the solutions, and learning from each other's mistakes and success cases. So among other, this first meeting, and I hope you can hear me because it's very loud now, the noise. Can you hear me well? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, it's okay.
Elena.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. So among other, this first meeting touched a few biomass relevant priorities very clearly. So that we need better production data. So reporting is critical, and harmonized reporting among the countries is critical, so that we can claim that we have a growing seaweed industry. Cultivation is key. but well-managed wild harvesting practices exist, and as Celine showed, really support the existing EU seaweed industry and the market. And we need a framework for responsible use of the recurrent coastal blooms, including the need to address non-native, some of them invasive biomass streams. Next slide, please. So I won't go into this, but we all know, and Maris already stated, so the Commission has a strong growth ambition with the EU Algae Initiative and related documents that have been coming out. But if we really want to upscale sustainably, we really need much better visibility on what the biomass is available and from which streams. Next slide, please. So what we know today, and I won't go through this, but just to show you just this between these two presentations, one of the things we really are aware is we have a big discrepancy of numbers. So starting with the wild harvested biomass. Next slide, please. We are focused in only a few streams and a few species and resources streams. And just to give you an idea, and Celine already presented, Ascophyllum, Laminaria mainly, and also Gelidium, the red seaweed in Portugal and northern Spain, with 1,000 of tons of wild seaweed harvested annually. Next slide, please. Also, besides the wild harvest or targeted, we also have the wild harvest from blooms, and Celine already presented, so I won't go through this. Next slide, please. So it's good to save time. But we also have these biomass, not only from native species, but from the exotic species. I list here the Rugulopteryx and the Asparagopsis. And in fact, Rugulopteryx okamurai is the only macroalgae species currently listed in the EU Union List of Concern. And it is a very serious problem in the Mediterranean and Southwestern Atlantic, southern, almost to the center of Portugal already. And the EU we know that prevention is the best way to avoid it, but also we know that when it's here, when they are established, we don't have a choice but to look for management solutions. And at this point, there is not yet an harmonized EU solution for valorizing this biomass as regulation for invasive species prevented. So we need to find a way on how to do this. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. To go, including reforestation practices, but for currently farmed species, the ranges are still very low in the hundreds of tons. But again, the discrepancy here with what Celine was presenting, with FAO data showing around 1,200 tons of wet weight, and here combining FAO, Eurostat, information from industry, and also reports like from the Cirque Algae project, we can reach easily to 2,000 wet tons. So actually, next, please. Next, yeah. So when we talk, sorry about when we talk about biomass availability, really the answer will change depending on what we are talking about, which type of source we are talking about. Next slide, please. And I know I need to go fast. Next. Sorry, yeah. So this to say also that we talk about those main species, but in fact we are also working in parallel in bringing new species or authorizing new species that already have a market demand. And many of these have a potential also to be cultivated because at this moment they don't grow more in terms of supply because there isn't enough biomass production. We talk about Atlantic nori and dulse, but also, next slide, please. But also for, besides the food applications, we also have species that are already being produced, commercialized, but they don't appear in the statistics of in reports, and they could bring more visibility for the EU seaweed industry. Next slide, please. So basically here we saw the best available picture, as you like to say, not a definitive census. This is exactly why we need to define what is biomass availability. And this matters so much in policy and also investment discussions. So it's not only that data are missing, but also they are very hard to compare. Definitions are different. The units that we report are different. And we don't have the treatment for and reporting for a lot of these, let's call it irregular, the nuisance biomass streams like invasive species, exactly. And this was one of the focus of the EU for Algae webinar, and I'm sure Laura will talk about it, but this to say it is important that we really work together, and the best vehicle to do this is through national associations. So please get in touch with your national association so that they can then bring back to EABA in EU for algae activities. Next slide, please. And this is my next slide. Yeah, I go quickly. So here, just to say, this is just a conclusion. So we really need to. We see it as a very key activity that we really need to work together and very quick in order to get these numbers on track and really report what's happening, and that really help in the policy, but also investment, and also bringing more credibility to our sector. And then the final slide, please. So to thank you again, and also to call your attention for these events that EABA organizes together with the young alganeers, the EAS. It's happening in Wageningen, and also the Algae Europe in Malta in late December. And that is it. Thank you so much. Sorry to pass a little bit of time, and I'm sorry for the background noise. I hope we have points to discuss.
Yeah, we heard you well in any case, so thank you. Thanks. Even connecting from traveling.
The train. Thanks.
So I will now introduce our next speaker, who is Anda Iacuniece. I hope I pronounced correctly your surname, Anda, sorry. So she's a senior researcher and head of marine monitoring department from Latvian Institute of Aquatic Ecology. So we invited her as one of the authors of the study to support a sustainable EU algae industry of SINEA, and in particular as author of the WP5 of this study, which are the recommendations for sustainable wild seaweed harvesting and beach collection of seaweed on European coasts. And she will give you some key takeaways from this work. So thank you, Anda, and welcome on stage.
Yeah, thank you, Valentina, for the introduction, and also thank you for having me. Probably I will save some time because the report I have been working together with my colleagues, including also Celine, has been already around for a year, and therefore the data are available and used. And yeah, I have been including in my presentation the same data what has been just presented, but still. It was, a work contracted by SINEA, next slide, please, a year ago, and it covered both microalgae and macroalgae topics, and we can kind of group them into human use and then helping the nature aspects. And I really recommend, if anybody has not seen it, to have a look at the report, because it contains quite a lot of useful numerical information and future perspectives. So I will touch upon a bit on what the report was about, also on other work packages, not only on WP5 we were leading. So next slide, please. Microalgae, it was found that if we cultivate microalgae more like Nanochloropsis and Chlorella, and replace algal oil, the fish oil is replaced by algal oil, and then there can be also a savings in a sense of fish production, and also a savings in CO2 emissions. And it appeared also that the quality and the fish health algae-based products are of the same as conventional normal used feeds. Then an interesting aspect was using of recycled side streams from wineries and breweries. They contain a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus and also CO2. So they are like a perfect media for microalgae production. But still, and it was like a horizontal aspect throughout the project results that we still need more detailed and more defined investment conditions and also regulatory support. Because yes, we are ahead of some countries maybe, and also ahead in science and in research, but our regulatory framing still is a way back. Then next, so the next aspect was like how macroalgae can contribute to nutrient removal and also to carbon sequestration. So it was found that yes, if we have a large-scale, it was more theoretical, large-scale macroalgal cultivation across Europe, then there can be uptakes of like 150 kilograms of nitrogen per square kilometer per year, and about 30 kilograms phosphorus, and it's just by cultivation. And not mentioning the aspects of regenerative farming, what Maris showed explicitly in his presentation. And also carbon sequestration and habitat restoration in areas where seaweed is declining, like Bay of Biscay and near Iberian Peninsula, then it can give an effect of about, let's say, 1.1 million tons of carbon if only 10,000 square kilometers are covered or used for macroalgal cultivation. So it is an asset and also a tool how to mitigate climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. But again, there is a need for more clear and responding regulation. And then food and feed systems, it was also mentioned in previous presentation, there are attempts to use asparagopsis with feed for cows and reduce thus way the methane production. But here again, the general conclusion was that more research is needed to have it like a safe industrial production of this and a safe industrial way to use this finding. Yes, next slide, please. Then it is about the topic of work package we were concentrating on. And so we looked at the status of wild seaweed harvesting in European countries. And we have 6 countries in European Union. Estonia, Denmark, France, Ireland, Portugal, and Spain. And the number varies between 100,000 tons up to 130,000 tons of algae harvested. And here again, we can touch upon the data issue, which was mentioned already before, because when I saw Celine's data, then they are higher in Spain and Portugal for wild harvesting that I could find. And the main actually challenge here was, yes, looking for national reports and trying to find national contact points who can provide the advice on seaweed harvest data. And it really is not so easy. And it's interesting that in the countries where the harvests are lower now, like in Estonia and also in Portugal and Spain, the data reporting is better than in the countries where the seaweed, the wild harvesting is kind of a quite large industrial sector, like in Ireland and in France. France is very good in provincial aspects, but Ireland, I could find like very few data reported. And then we looked at the regulations and also for recommendations for what should be taken in further into account. But now we move to the beach cast a bit. The next slide. Yes, and here also data challenges again. The green numbers you see on the graph are estimated or showing up on the beach, but the largest ones are really modeled values. These are not like observed. And the problem with beach cast data is that you cannot estimate everything at once. And you should take some assumptions how to assess it. And the legislation also is a problem because of the how do we position beach cast. And when in Ireland and in France it's a resource, and in Germany it's waste and is not allowed to be used in somewhere else. Then we touch upon shortly on recommendations. So all countries gathering, harvesting now the seaweed, wild harvest seaweed, then there are permit systems in place, and they are using sustainable. But knowledge on stock is a thing we should always be aware. And our advice would be to include these areas in maritime spatial plans for a better vision of possible conflicts. And the last slide, please. Yeah, and regarding the beach cast collection, we would advise to have this permit system, because there are countries like in Italy and Malta and some places in France and Spain where seaweed beach cast is needed for the habitat, and you cannot remove everything and have it as a resource, although it's large numbers being on the beach. So our general advice would be to go for cultivation more than for seaweed harvesting and beach cast collection. And yes, please consult the report, and that would be my last word. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Anda, for the presentation. So now, before moving in the agenda, it was mentioned that we should hear from Olivier de Klerk, the research that iCULTURE is doing on the management model for seaweed harvesting. So before going into our research, since Professor Nadav Bar from NTNU, our coordinator, should have solved this problem with camera and mic, so we can hear a few words about the project before going into its research. So Nadi, yes, we can perfectly hear you. You will have 5 minutes.
I'm going to present to you very shortly. You all know this planet, so it has a lot of seaweed, and I guess that most of you know that already. And we are, the question arises from several industrial partners and scientific also. How can we utilize this, what I consider amazing biomass? And for example, what the other presenters showed, especially Rugolopteryx and Rugolopteryx, but also Sargassum, when they're blooming. So how can we use this biomass? And as today, most of the biomass, what I know at least from Norway, from our partners, they're using alginate. Some of it is used for food. We want to move more than that. We want to move to use, for example, Ascophyllum or Laminaria, the red seaweed like Gelidium, into big processes. How do we do that? As for now, we run laboratory experiments, and most of the experiments, both in the laboratory and also larger scales, turned with microbial fermentations, for example, or yeast, the seaweed into energy. We want to do something else. We want to use the seaweed for high-value molecules, for example, antibiotics. How do we do that? Well, it's not a simple task, because if you look at the seaweed, and it's almost any seaweed, it's not unlike glucose, or unlike if you want corn or other, for example, sugarcane that is mostly glucose. It has very little glucose or sugars. And if you look at the content, we analyze them, it's actually very small. So how do we do that nevertheless? So we have a pre-processing. Part of the science is actually to turn the whole biomass into, not alginate, but into sugars that we can use in fermentation that you see here, by microbial fermentation, to produce antibiotics. To do that, we need to change the cells. We need to take microbial cells, change them genetically so they can actually utilize the sugars. This is the consortium you see here. We're quite a large group of scientists, and it's very diverse scientist group. This is the project itself. It's quite large, actually, 17 partners with 10 industry, and it has both the biotechnology, which is the utilization, but it's contain half of it preservation. We don't want only to utilize the seaweed, we want also to preserve it. It's all about, of course, Europe. The idea is to take microbial strains, to modify them, to actually hear what we want to say, and to control them, how they grow and how to eat the sugars, and then produce these antibiotics, if you want. These modifications are not simple, but we already done it. So, and then we take the bacteria, put them together into one big process, and control it. Assumably, if we do it properly, if we do it correctly, we can actually take the seaweed and produce antibiotics. As I said, most of the project, or half of the project, is not only utilization, it's also preservation. So we have work packages. Some of them focus on getting the data, understanding where the seaweed is in Europe. We are focusing on European coast. What type of seaweed there is? What are the blooming ones? What are the invasive ones? Can we use them? And then take the biomass, take samples of the biomass, process them, try to get the sugar as much as possible, concentrate the sugars, remove what is not good, do it in industrially viable way. So it's not going to be expensive. It has to be cheap if the industry is going to use it, but still sustainable. And it means once we manage to make the process and it's profitable, how can we prevent overharvesting? Or is it possible to cultivate some of them? Which one is the best? All these questions or answers you will hear from Olivier, the guy that is responsible for the sustainability. My group work on the utilization, and we really work together to make it happen. So we want to move this into antibiotics. Antibiotics is just an example, but it's a good example because it's very profitable. Thank you. I hope I was brief.
Thank you, Nadi. You were perfectly on time, so thank you. I will now introduce Prof. Olivier de Klerk from University of Ghent, who is part with this institution of the iCULTURE Consortium that you've seen before. So he was present also in the photo. So Olivier, please, welcome on stage.
Okay, thank you, Valentina. I hope everybody can hear me. Good. So I'm going to present one aspect of the iCULTURE project. I'm going to talk about how we can move towards what is called a seaweed forest management model. Next slide, please. Good. So as most of the people here in the audience know, is that some seaweeds, they form these underwater forests. We refer to them as seaweed forest species. And well, they're actually one of the world's most productive marine ecosystem, and they're of immense ecological importance. Their ecological importance is reflected, for example, as nurseries of fisheries or in nutrient cycling, carbon removal, etc. People have quantified their value, and we come to a very large number, about $500 billion per year. This is about the global value of these marine forests. However, marine forests are also in a worldwide decline, either directly or indirectly linked to extreme climatic events. Think marine heat waves, etc., or just the elevation of the average seawater temperatures. Next slide, please. Good. Marine seaweed forests are also harvested. We've seen this in the previous presentations. I put some numbers here. So for Europe, this is a number of about 170,000 tons of fresh weight per year, mainly laminaria and ascophyllum, but also Chile, China, South Africa. They harvest a considerable number of seaweed forest species from natural populations. So when we compare this harvest of natural populations to what is being produced through aquaculture, then this number is actually very, very small. It's about 35 million tons of fresh weight per year seaweeds that are being produced annually. Good. In Europe, however, the production of seaweeds through aquaculture is very small. Good. I have a number here from 2023. It's about 600 tons of fresh weight. Now, an important note here, and this already came in the previous presentations as well, that there is a discrepancy. There's a difference between what we harvest from natural populations and what we grow by means of aquaculture. In Europe, let's say the seaweed farming is mainly dominated at the moment by Saccharina or sugar kelp. And this has reasons because we can control the life cycle quite well. And the species also has a fast growth rate. However, the seaweeds that we harvest for natural populations, think ascophyllum, think laminaria. These at the moment we cannot culture. And the reasons why we harvest them has mainly to do with the quality and the quantity of the biochemical compositions, namely the hydrocolloids or the alginate that we derive from them. Next slide, please. Good. So the regulation of this this harvesting, yeah. It's always a delicate balance between, on the one hand, the economic needs, and on the other hand, the ecological sustainability of these ecosystems. For most countries, this is regulated at the country level or at the local level, and then we see several measures so that sustainability, for example, is promoted by interactions with a scientific community, for example, in terms of monitoring, or rotation systems for harvesting, limited number of landings per day that are possible, or the limitations of the number of licenses. On the right-hand side, you see a schematic representation of the Brittany area, yeah, where we see a rotation harvesting for Laminaria hyperborea that has been put into place. Next slide, please. Good. And now here we come towards the future, which is very important. So how will these seaweed forests actually respond to shifting climatic conditions and extreme weather events, excuse me. So we know from a number of studies, and I'm just visualizing one here by Georges Assis in 2017. So where he modeled the shifts in distribution of one of these commercial species, Laminaria digitata. So in blue, that's where the distribution range of the species is expected to be stable. Green is under future climate scenarios. This is where habitats can be newly formed, so we have a gain in the distribution there. But red is basically the loss of Laminaria digitata from quite extensive areas on the western and eastern side of the North Atlantic. For distributions, we have, let's say, good information, but what about the biomass? What about the biorecovery potential of these populations? And then last but not least, from an applied perspective, so how will the chemical composition of these commercial species also change under future climates? Next slide, please. And this is where a large part of iCULTURE is actually concentrating on. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to model biomass, we're trying to model the biorecovery, as well as the chemical composition. Now, these three factors, so we see three different tasks here, they should come together into a resource management model. During the rest of my presentation, I will mainly focus on the biomass model because that's where we've made most of the progress so far. Next slide. Good. So what is the aim of the biomass model? It's basically a prediction of spatio-temporal distribution of seaweed biomass. We're using correlative models linking seaweed biomass to environmental characteristics. Yes. Slide. Good. So first thing that we did is on a global basis, so that this is not focused on Europe alone, is that we gathered papers, literature, data of about 6,500 that we screened. 500 were useful. And then from these useful papers, we got about 7,000 biomass records. So biomass here defined as the kilos per square meter. And this of more than 190 species belonging to 52 genera. We complemented this literature search with existing data sets from Kira Krumhansel in 2016 and from the previous Marfor project. So if you want to appreciate this new data set, so the orange dots here on the map, these are the new records that we gathered. The blue dots, that's what was available from existing data sets. So it's a very substantial increase in biomass records. Next one, please. Good. We did a technical validation, and I'll just make it very short on this slide. It's basically saying that we have a data paper which is in preparation, and in order to make this data set ready to use for everyone. So we polished the taxonomy, we polished geographical coordinates, we removed duplicates, and then we screened and removed outliers where necessary. On the right-hand side, you see the variables, the descriptions of the variables, and this data will become available shortly. Next one. Good. In terms of modeling, so we have occurrence biomass records, we have macroecological rasters. It will be no surprise for many that we used BioOracle, the third version of this. And then we merged both, or we analyzed them using machine learning techniques. Mainly gradient boosting was used here. And then finally, the occurrences and the ecological predictors were translated into geographically explicit predictions of biomass in geographic space. Next slide. Good. And this is the outcome. Good. This is the outcome of the prediction of seaweed biomass on a global scale. I'll leave it up to you to have a clear look at it. It's a manuscript that is in preparation at the moment. On the right-hand side, you see what the predictors are like. So, to no surprise, the genus level or the exact genus will have a large influence on the biomass prediction, but also temperature variables, light variables, nutrient and wave fetch all have a large impact on the prediction. At the right bottom side, you see the performance of the model. So it's the observed versus the predict fresh weight biomass here with some of the metrics that tell us that the model is actually performing quite well. Next slide. Good. Now, something that is probably most important in this study is the predictions of the area, the biomass, and how this will likely evolve with future scenarios. Let me first say something here, that one of the novelties that we introduced in this biomass model is that we included a substrate layer. So we actually restricted the biomass to areas where there is appropriate substrate. And this yields seaweed biomass that is considerably lower than what is so far been predicted in the literature. The differences between the gray values here in the table and the ones in black. Good. Regardless of substrate layer, we do envisage a loss of seaweed area as well as seaweed biomass, ranging from about 20 to 30%, depending on the climatic scenario that was used in the modeling. So substantial changes and changes where we will see less seaweed biomass in future scenarios of these forest species on a global scale, that should be said. Next slide. Good. The biomass model is only one of 3 models. There is also a biorecovery model. And what we try to do here is we try to make individual-based models for kelp species that incorporate growth, mortality, recruitment, as well as environmental parameters. It's actually a model that has been published before, based on Undaria pinnatifida, an invasive species in Europe, but we're tuning this into laminaria in order to arrive at predictions of how under future scenarios the recovery of after harvesting, for example, may be affected. On the right-hand side, you see the typical laminaria life cycle. You see an image of the site where we are gathering the information to train the models, and we see the first outcomes of the models at the right-hand side at the bottom. Next slide, please. There's also a
Sorry,
biochemical
Olivier,
model.
please also have a look at the timer. So if you
Yes.
can shrink a bit, thank you.
2 more slides. There's also a biochemical model. Yeah. So as I said, for the industry, the biochemical composition of the marine seaweed forest is very important. So there again, we have species, we have locations, we have biochemical composition, and as a modeling framework, we're using something that is similar to the biomass model there. Next slide, please. Good. So the people in CCMAR, namely Lydiane Gouveia, together with data that we derived from Algaia, and as well as monosaccharide composition that was gathered by our partners at NTNU, we have an extensive data set of biochemistry that we're now in the process of analyzing. Next slide, please. Good. Sorry, it was 2 more slides, because we also are focusing on invasive species. One of the species that is in the meantime known to everyone is Rugelopteryx okamurai. So there we're also making models, combining correlative models with physiological models, so a hybrid approach that we're using there. Next slide. To actually predict how Rugelopteryx is expected to occur. Yep. And what we can expect in terms of invasive behavior and in terms of biomass. So here we see a comparison between a native species, Dictyota dichotoma, and Rugelopteryx in terms of its thermal performance. And on the right-hand side, you see this translation into the growth season of both species. It's work that is being carried out at the moment, but we do have fairly good indications that even though the invasive behavior of Rugelopteryx will be less pronounced at higher latitudes, is that the species can definitely survive at higher latitudes. And then I'm talking France, the UK, and even southern Scandinavia. Next slide, please. Good. Summary, a biomass model, a biorecovery model, and a composition model. In a year's time, this should all culminate into our resource management model, and which I will be very happy to share with all of you. Next slide. I presented on for the Ghent University, with the people listed there, namely Lorraine, Maria, and Sophie, who've been doing a lot of the work. But there's also a lot of input here from NTNU, so Narav Bar, Chinmay, Nicolo Lazzaro from FBK, our private partners, Algaia, Polar Algae, Alginor, and then, of course, the 2 research institutes in Portugal, CCMAR, Faro, and CEMAR in Porto, that contributed to the biochemical data and the distribution data. Thank you very much.
That's great. So many thanks, Olivier. I think this is very inspiring for everybody. And now, before we jump to the last session that is in the interactive one, please, all the speakers try to stay in time. And now I will give the floor to Georg Koplin from Alginor, that is in one of the most active industries in the sector and is also involved in many EU-funded projects. And he will provide the perspective of the industries in seaweed sustainable management. Georg, welcome on stage.
Yes, 1 second. So yes, I just tell you when to switch slide. Okay, so yeah, here the industry perspective on seaweed, biorefinery from wild and from cultivated seaweed. Next slide, please. So I will go through this very short. What is Blue Biorefinery? It's basically integrated facilities for valorizing aquatic biomass, in our case seaweed, and turning it into multiple products, emphasizing circular economy and approaching zero waste. And yeah, seaweed, of course, is highly suitable because it's very abundant. Underexploited biomass has a lot of high-value components, and especially the side streams are underutilized by the conventional industry. Next slide, please. So if you compare conventional seaweed industry, they usually just extract one major polysaccharide or phycocolloid from each class of macroalgae. So for brown seaweed, it would be alginate, for red seaweed, agar or paraginan, for green seaweed, ulvan. And this is usually 10 to 30% of the dry matter, and the other 70% are basically discarded. Often also just due to the fact that the process uses toxic chemicals like formaldehyde for storage or processing itself. And for seaweed biorefinery, you aim for a cascade extraction, separating the raw material into many high-value components, avoid toxic chemicals, and approach zero waste. Next slide, please. So in practice, conventional industry takes the seaweed, performs a wash extraction step, and ends up with a main product. This is of course a very simplified depiction, but click please. Yes, and for seaweed biorefinery, you would utilize the side streams, can do this. The liquid side streams could be crude extract as a product itself, can be further purified, or you can take the solid side stream, sell it as a product like soil conditioner, fertilizer, or feed, or you can further increase the value, as we do in the iCULTURE project, with fermentation and end up with high-value applications, very flexible processes and target molecules. And this makes the whole biorefinery concept also a lot more resilient, because you can adapt your product output to the market demands. You could decide, oh, I sell like 80% as crude extract, 20% further purified, or you switch it based on what the market demands. Next slide. So yeah, we have heard this before. Wild seaweed biomasses in Europe, around 200 million tons. Currently, only 0.2% of this is actively harvested. Mostly brown seaweed like Hyperborea and digitata. For cultivated seaweed, it's 35 million tons worldwide that are produced in aquacultures, mostly in Asia. And in Europe, we have 70 to 80 active seaweed farming companies that produce roughly 600 to 3,000 tons of cultivated seaweed in Europe. And the main species are Saccharina latissima and Alaria esculenta, but on the seaweed farms, you basically find any species, like everything is possible. And models show, I have to say, very optimistic models show that 5 to 30 million tons are theoretically possible based on water conditions and area and so on. Next slide, please. So what is seaweed farming? How does it work? It's basically floating ropes. It's a rig of floating ropes that is attached to the seabed, and seedlings are implemented. Seedlings are implemented into the ropes and can be harvested every 1 to 3 months, depending on the seaweed species and the climate, and what are advantages of seaweed farming. Of course, it's highly traceable. You can basically select your species, you have a consistent supply, it's standardized, and if profitable, and that's the key part, if profitable, it's highly scalable. So you can also basically implement it in areas where otherwise no seaweed grows because the water is too deep. You can attach it to offshore wind parks, have it around fish farms and other marine industry. And this has the advantage also ecologically that it cleans the water around, provides additional habitat for fish, yeah, so basically is beneficial there on all areas. But the disadvantage is that you have high costs due to the construction and the maintenance of these farms. So these ropes need to be maintained. You have a lot of manual labor, and you basically only can harvest 2 to 3 times per year. Of course, also dependent on species and climate, but that's what we kind of have in Europe. Also, if your seaweed is affected by overgrowth, epiphytes, heavy overgrowth, you might lose an entire harvest, which is financially quite detrimental if you just have 2 harvests per year and you lose one of them due to overgrowth. Next slide, please. So this is where we come to the opportunities and potential for combining seaweed biorefinery with cultivation, and this has mostly advantages for both sides. So for seaweed farms, it could be possible to repurpose existing seaweed harvesting boats with just slight modifications to make them be able to collect the seaweed from the ropes directly into the tanks, and they are basically built for seaweed already. So you might just need to change a collecting arm and so on, and which reduces costs and manual labor for the farms a lot. And for it's also possible to process seaweed that is affected by overgrowth that would otherwise be not suitable for the food industry and so on anymore, to still process in the seaweed biorefinery. It can still run through the same process, solid liquid separation, and this would also increase the profit for the seaweed farms, especially because they don't lose any harvest anymore. They would have a secure customer, and seasonal restraints are alleviated because the seaweed biorefinery runs on wild seaweed harvest all year round, and whenever a batch of cultivated seaweed is ready, production can switch to the cultivated seaweed and afterwards switch back to the wild seaweed. And the advantage for the seaweed biorefinery is you have additional raw material supply, you can expand your product portfolio, you increase your green and ecological profile, and most likely only very slight changes in the process are necessary. Of course, not every seaweed is exactly the same, but if you have your biorefinery developed on, for example, brown seaweed, you can likely run other brown seaweeds without major modifications. If your biorefinery is developed for red seaweed, you don't need a lot of modifications to run another red seaweed. You probably just adjust time and temperatures and so on a little bit, but you don't need to change your equipment. And next slide, please. That's the last one. And yeah, in the iCULTURE project, we also increase the value of the seaweed biorefinery by upgrading the value of the side stream through precision fermentation. And iCULTURE also helps with increasing the compatibility of seaweed farming and seaweed biorefinery, because the side stream utilization gives a higher profitability along the entire value chain. And that's it.
Many thanks, Georg. So it was very interesting, and we keep on staying in the world of industry and with our sister project, Circalgi. So I call for Ronan Pierre that will present some key takeaway of this interesting report on the current algae industry in Europe. So Ronan,
Yes,
jump
good
on
morning,
stage.
everybody. I'm Ronan Pierre from SEVA, French Innovation Center for Algae, and I'm going to share with you some insights from Circualgae project. Next, please. So Circualgae is the Horizon Europe project focusing on circular valorization of industry side streams into high-value products for food, feed, and cosmetics. We have over 20 partners across Europe covering the whole value chain. And we have, next please, a specific focus on valorizing the solid co-products and effluents from the existing industries. But if you look at how to valorize those, you have different approaches. Well, first of all, you have these solid co-products, which are, usually wet products. Some large companies have, good knowledge of their composition. They looked in depth into what they contain, the volumes, and so on, but they're still mostly used for agricultural applications or not really valorized anyway. Then you have liquid effluents where you know even less on the composition. Usually some companies try to recycle water, but there's still a lot of losses and they're sent to treatment plants, losing lots of interesting compounds in them. You may have some additional aspects like contaminants, which may restrict downstream applications, and also you're facing some confidentiality challenges when you try to valorize them, because a number of companies do not want to give out too much on their processes or volume processed and so on. Next. Besides this, using these products brings in a number of technical and processing hurdles. Well, as I said, these solid residues are usually wet, so you don't want to move them to other companies because you don't want to transport water, but drying is energy intensive. You can consider different stabilization or storage approaches, but this usually leads to lower quality and it's usually limiting their value anyway. On top of it, you also have a number of processing aids during the process, which may bring in additional hurdles. For example, mineral aids used for filtration, but which are not compatible with downstream processing. Also, a number of undesired chemical compounds that can be present. So there's a lot of technical work to be done to actually process those co-products. Next. But it's not only technical, and even if it's highly interesting to get different value streams and products from the same raw material, it's not always easy to handle from an industry perspective. We have lots of small and medium companies in the sector producing quite low volumes of co-products, sometimes mixed also because they're working on different species. And it's also a challenge to be able to work on several different markets in terms of, getting the right resources to address those markets, in terms of facing different regulations also. You need to consider the right product stream balance. Not enough co-products will not be sufficient sometimes to build an additional processing line, but inversely, the value of a number of these ingredients is directly related to the scarcity. So producing larger volumes may reduce their value. And then you have to face also price and availability fluctuations, for example, and that's something we need to keep in mind for long term also with climate change, for example. And we need to consider the fact that we have cold waters in Europe, so we don't have always the right species and components for what we are looking for. So there's still a lot of import. Next. We're also living in an evolving regulatory and strategic environment, and well, we talked a lot already with Mary's presentations and others earlier on. Well, we are answering to a strong societal demand for bio-based approaches and new nature-based solutions. There is a political will at European level and in the different member states to push the algae sector and to valorize co-products. So that's really a driving approach for these biorefineries. We also need to keep making progress in the regulatory environment. There's a lot of work ongoing with the European Standardization Committee on algae and algae products. We progressively see algae introduced also into the regulations, but there's still a lot of uncertainty, and we need to harmonize things and get a clear regulatory framework to be able to get the full value out of it. But really, that's something moving on. Next. And well, there's still a lot to do, but we can see many different perspectives in terms of, well, process optimization across the whole value chain, from the biology, cultivation towards processing. We see a lot of synergies also between industries in terms of sharing facilities and knowledge, but also upgrading existing production systems, cooperating also for logistics or downstream processing. There's a lot of collaboration to be made between the different companies, and we need to keep being agile in terms of, well, facing market evolutions and regulation, as well as new technologies coming up. Next. And I'm going to finish with this one. This was a very short insight as to some of the conclusions of the report on, well, circularity and biorefineries, but you can access a full report on Zenodo. It's been downloaded over 4,000 times already, and I invite you to look at it and get the full view on the European algae production and processing market. Thank you.
Many thanks. We will go to the Mentimeter now before. So I just want to say that we will share all the presentation to the participants. So you will have all these links, because the documents you are referring, the different speakers are very, very interesting. So before we go to the last two speakers, we would like to hear from the participants what are the projects in which you are involved. So let's go very, very quick to a Mentimeter session. So you have the QR code, you can enter the QR code. You can put more than one project. So if you are involved in more than one project, you can put as much as you want. This is just to have an overview of the projects that are there, that are here today, and then how we can, of course, we will also try to understand how we can cooperate in the future. So you can you can enter this QR code. We see that there are 32 people inside. Okay, so you can start voting. Okay, Luis, can we move?
In case you can also enter by going on www.menti.com and enter the code if you're not able with the cell phone to scan the QR.
Okay, so this is the QR code. So okay, so which project do you represent? So you can put again more than one project. Okay, so we see U for algae, we see Circalgae, Proteus, Eurostat, oh, okay, so we start to see many interesting projects. So we have all your contacts, and then there will be in the interactive session, we just created a networking area in which you can put your contacts if you want to get in contact, since we have seen that inside the chat there is a very lively discussion, and I think that these events are also a very good way to start sharing ideas and challenges and to proceed on our collaboration. So I think we are more or less fine. We can, of course, iCULTURE, but I see many people from seaweed, of course, more bigger they are, more people. We have Proteus, CMARC, Euphoralgy, Farus, Blue BioBoost. Great. Okay, so I think that we can move because we have two a very interesting presentations. So since we have here, we have heard the industry perspective. Now we have, of course, CBJU, and so we have Monica Padella, that is the project officer for all the projects that are in blue resources, in marine resources, and she will introduce what they are doing in this domain. So Monica, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you for the introduction and also for having me to present CBJU, what we do in general, and then with a particular focus on our aquatic biomass portfolio. So next slide, please. So CBJU, the Circular Bio-Based Europe Joint Undertaking, is a public-private initiative of 2 billion euros between the European Commission and the Bio-Based Industry Consortium. It was launched in 2021 and will operate until 2031. It's part of the Horizon Europe program and is supporting the European bioeconomy in general, and it's built on the predecessor that was BBI-JU. Next slide, please. The general objective of CBJU, maybe you already know, but it's something that we would like always to stress, is to accelerate the innovation process of innovative solutions, but not only from the innovation side, but also from the market deployment side. So our goal, our focus is that this solution will go into the market, into commercialization, and also ensuring a high level of environmental performances of the solutions that our projects are proposing. Next slide, please. So these are the different type of actions that we support. So as you can see from the slide, we have different projects at different TRL levels. So we go from TRL 3 of RIA project that will finish at TRL 5. So they will develop and validate the technologies, but our main focus is on higher TRL, on innovation actions, which goes from TRL, which goes up to TRL 6 and 7, but also flagship project. So first of a kind production facilities that will go up to TRL 8. So this is really our focus and our specificity within the Horizon Europe program, because the joint undertaking is actually built to, as I said, to bring the innovation to the market, to higher TRL, just one step before the commercial scale. Next slide, please. Just an overview of the project that have been funded so far. So in our portfolio, we have 220 projects that has been funded from BBI until 2025 with CBE, with many participants and many countries. And if we look in at the participants and the ratio of the funding where they are going, you can see from the chart that most of our beneficiaries are actually private companies, of which as a big proportion, so 35% and 38% in terms of funding, are small and medium-sized enterprises. So this is really the specificity of our program, to fund small and medium-sized enterprises and to provide the necessary funding to scale up, let's say. but also, of course, research centers and university represent a big part of the beneficiaries in our project. Next slide, please. So if we look at the feedstock types, I apologize already because there is a typo in this slide, because the aquatic portfolio is not as big as the other portfolios so far. Actually, the correct number should be 18 projects, but as you can see, it's a portfolio that is growing. So it's not the main one. We have a lot of projects focusing on the agri-food and the forest-based biomass, but the aquatic one is also getting more focus and also more topic. We have been launched in the last few years more call with topics focused on the aquatic biomass. So it's a portfolio that is actually growing. Next slide, please. And here, looking at the main area of applications of our projects, as you can see, the focus is mainly on food, feed, and cosmetic, but also the biochemical and bio-based materials. The applications very present. I'm sorry that I see the numbers are a little bit not well presented. I will fix the slides later. And the packaging is also the area of application is also quite important. Next slides. And this is an overview of the different projects that we have in our aquatic biomass portfolio. So when we talk about aquatic biomass feedstock, for us, it's not only the macroalgae, which is the seaweed that is the focus of today, but we also have projects in the microalgae and fish byproduct and seafood and side streams. Here you can see a summary of the different projects in relation to the different level of TRL. We have some of these projects are finished, some of them are still ongoing, and as you can see, the number of projects as in the innovation action, the demo projects are actually growing lately. So we have more projects that will end at TRL 7 when the project ends. And to note that in addition to the 7 that are shown before, they're shown in the slide, we have 2 additional projects that are currently under GAP, so means grant preparation report. So they are not signed yet, but will start. So we have 9 projects in total in the innovation action and 2 projects as flagship. So the 2 projects are Scale and Proteus, that I'm happy to hear that people from Proteus are also in the room in this are participating in this workshop. So it means for these 2 projects, they are really large scale, first of its kind production facilities that will finish, that will end in TRL 8. And I have next slides, please. Just a summary slide on Proteus, which is this kelp-side stream valorization to develop a new bio-based value chain project, which is coordinated actually by Alginor that we worked before. The feedstock in this case is the brown seaweed, and the main product will be ingredients for use in the food, feed, personal care, but also other applications. So you can see in this slide a summary of the whole value chain that is covered by this project, from the feedstock to the harvesting to the construction of a full biorefinery until the application, the use of the end products. And next slide, please. And just to finish, I want to share with you this slide on the future funding opportunities. So for call 2026, we'll actually open next month on the 23rd of April, and the call deadline will be then September, with a big budget of 170 million euro. And I just copied from our website the link you can find there, and you can then further explore the different topics. But as you can see, in many topics, both in the flagship and in the innovation actions, there is not a prescription of which feedstock should be used. That means that projects using seaweed can apply in when if the topic allows it. But I really encourage you to go into our website and to look at each topic that might be relevant for you, and to apply once the call is open on the 23rd of April. And with this, this is my last slide, I think. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Many thanks, Monica, also for this great opportunity. So I think that the colleagues are taking notes, and we will finish with U4Algae. With Laura Maragna, and so she will explain the role of U4Algae as ecosystem facilitator. So to conclude and to link all the nice presentations that we had. Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Thank you very much indeed. I think from all the presentations we have seen how rich the algae ecosystem is in Europe. So maybe next slide, please. I'll explain what actually EU4Algae is doing to support this ecosystem. So the EU4Algae is the Europe Stakeholders Platform for Algae. It was launched in 2022. It's the DG MARE algae project, a flagship project. This is funded on the SINEA and FAF program. And we have let's say these 3 mandates, which is, of course, to connect the ecosystem. We have more than 1,200 members from industry, researchers, authorities, civil society, and we work as an interface between the Commission and the sector. And we are also engaging with several EU-funded projects and initiatives. So we also aim to structure the dialogue and support the implementation of the EU Algae Initiative. We try together with the sector in a bottom-up approach to identify the barriers and opportunities to provide insights for future actions, which could be like policy actions as well as future funding opportunities for the sector. And we also work towards activating the market for the innovation uptake. We are preparing an industry roadmap. And also supporting and promoting the investment dialogue. So EU4Algae is a platform that works to make this ecosystem work better together. Next slide, please. So we have seen several examples today. We have a rich ecosystem with multiple layers, but still there's some fragmentation. Maris has also provided an overview of the EU policies. Celine has mentioned also about the governance. We have seen also some commission programs just presented here by CBGU. We have seen from the Mentimeter several projects also attending this workshop. We have industry and SMEs, and we have associations also mentioned by Elena. So we don't lack initiatives. We need more connection, and we need to scale and more coherence as well. Next slide, please. So what is needed? Better coordination. That's what EU4Algae is trying to do. A lot has been also said about data. So we need stronger data and intelligence, and very happy to see all the exchanges in the chat as well, and how Olivier and Elena are already talking about it, because EABA actually is our partner and is working very hard on data, as I'll explain a little bit further. We need to support and scale, and we need also a stakeholder engagement, which is not the sector itself, but also the general public and to promote awareness, right? So this is more or less like a concept of what EU4Algae is trying to do, and now I'll give some concrete examples of the work that we've been doing since 2022. So just heads up of the series of reports that we have published between 2022 and 2025. In the presentation, you have the links. This is also available at the Publications Office. So next slide. Also, it was mentioned by Maris and Ronan that we organized the second EU Algae Awareness Summit in October in Berlin. This was a really great moment to see more than 250 people from the industry, from academia, policymakers, schools. So I also invite you to have a look on the EU4Algae website and check all the outcomes of the summit. Next slide, please. During the summit, I think Rona mentioned this momentum. It was announced that the signature of this declaration by several member states. So this was an effort initially led by Germany and France. And you can see here some of the points that this declaration is mentioning. But on the next slide, you can see that so far this has been signed by 8 member states. So they have a group of the signatories where they aim really to follow closely all the developments of the algae sector and support it further. Next slide, please. So what we are working now from 2025 to 2027, we are working on an algae farmers toolkit on our website. ABA is also working a lot, as Elena mentioned, on bringing more algae species into the EU market. We are working on an algae industry roadmap. If you attended the summit, maybe you have already contributed a bit in the roundtable discussions for prioritizing some action areas. We are now in the validation and interview phase, so very soon you hear more about the roadmap. We have just hosted the first thematic webinar of this year on blue carbon and nature credits. And also, as mentioned by Elena, and I think this is a very strong topic of today's webinar about data. EABA is really working, trying to collect some data from the algae sector. Rona mentioned how hard this can be, but we are trying hard, and it's good that we are already promoting synergies with some of the initiatives that are also occurring that we have seen today. We presented all these outcomes during this annual meeting. We usually have this annual meeting in December. We do it back to the Algae conference. So we presented the status of these outcomes that we are working on, but we also organized this thematic webinar where we have invited all these EU funding programs, the European Innovation Council, Blue Invest, European Investment Bank, Horizon Europe, the CBEGU, the SBEP, the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, and also MFAF, to present to the sector how their program works and the opportunities. Next slide, please. So just what we have for this year, we had a roundtable discussion with the experts and the Commission on the European Biobanking Strategy. We have just hosted the first thematic webinar on carbon and nature credits on the 20th of March. The recap article is going to be on the EU4Algae website with the presentations very soon. In the coming days. We are organizing a second thematic webinar of 2026 in June. This will be about standards and will be organized by EABA. Then we have a third thematic webinar where we aim to involve several algae funded projects and initiatives. More information will come soon. And the fourth thematic webinar will be about an activity we are carrying on with schools together with the European Blue Schools Network. We're involving a lot of teachers and preparing a handbook. They can make some algae activities within the classroom. So you can find also more information on our website. Next, please. Yeah, so just to conclude, I invite you all to look at our website and also join our LinkedIn group, just to say that EU4Algae is a bottom-up platform. You are all invited to make use of all these channels and let's move forward the algae sector together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laura, also for your contributions and for highlighting the efforts of EU4Algae in linking all the ecosystem. So now I think we are a little bit late in our schedule, but in any case, we would like to, if you can stay other 10 minutes. So we want to open the interactive session. I just put in the chat the link to access the Miro board, where you will find, once Luis will check, you can open on your own PC, of course. So to give your contributions inside the Miro, you will see when you enter the Miro board, you will see that we reported all the needs and challenges that were shared with us, with all the keynote speakers today, but also some solutions and recommendations that they provided for specific topics. We divided these topics in 3, so topics regarding RNI, so for example, the lack of data topics that it was recurrent today, policy and business. And you will see also that some of these needs, challenges, solutions and recommendations are divided for cultivation of algae, wild harvesting, circular valorization of algae waste streams, so also blue biorefineries, and transversal topics for all these three macro categories, I would say. You will see that the needs are reported in the post-its, orange post-its, the solutions in the green, and the recommendations in the light blue. So what we are asking to all participants is to contribute to this Miro board, inserting their needs and challenges in the different sectors and in the different dimensions, solutions and recommendations, with a particular focus on solutions and recommendations if possible, because we also discussed with Maris, and the Commission is really aware, and the policy landscape is really aware of what are the needs and the challenges, but it's important to start collecting good practices and recommendations to move forward the sector. Moreover, in the Miro board, you will also see a networking board on the right side, where you can put your contacts for networking. I saw that in the chat there were a lot of exchanges, so it's nice to see. So if you want to collaborate and to share more, you can you can insert your contacts for the participants. Said that, I don't know, Susanna, if you want to add something or...
Yes, just the fact that since we are a little bit late, we will leave this board open for 1 week for you, but also for your colleagues. So if you want to invite someone to contribute to this, we will aggregate all the results and we will send this report to all the registered participants that were more than 120. So I think that someone didn't make it, but they will receive in any case the material. And of course, you as a participant will receive everything. To use the Miro, maybe, I don't know, Luis, if you want to say a couple of words.
Yeah. So first of all, don't use the Miro in the share screen, because of course you can't use it. You have to link on the link that Valentina put in the chat. You can zoom in and zoom out with the mouse wheel. If you don't have a mouse, you can use this tool on the bottom right to zoom in and zoom out. To move the screen, you use the right button of the mouse, so you can pan on the right and left. And to use the sticky notes, just pick one, drag and drop in the area where you want, double click inside the sticky notes, and then add your contribution. So I think this is it, not more than that.
I see also that Helena is driving, so she's not able to contribute in the Miro board. Just to say that the Miro board will then left open for a week for all the participants to contribute and also to share with colleagues that maybe have something to say and to add. So I will share with all participants the link.
And if for any reason you're not able to enter the Miro board because maybe you're traveling or whatever, you can write your contribution. So specifically specifying if it is an hidden challenge solution or yes, in the chat, or a recommendation. You can put it in the chat, and then after this workshop, or if we can during, we will be able to put it in the Miro board later on. So in the final aggregated results, we will have everything. I see many people moving around in the Miro. So yeah, just to sum up in general, as you can see, there are already we extracted from all the presentation from the speakers some key highlights, and of course whenever possible we put also into parentheses I mean the owner of the contribution or the recommendation, or even better the solution. So in that case maybe someone else can go back and discuss or share ideas. So if you want to put into parentheses your name, this will facilitate. I see that also many people are putting their contacts in the networking board. So we leave you a couple of minutes and then we might pick something. And as you can see, we have divided these big macro categories that are also emerging. So basically the cultivation, including, of course, what are the current barriers or difficulties that the different players have, and where there is needed much more work, research, and whatever. Then we have the wild harvesting, that is the most crowded in terms of challenges, of course, taking into consideration the political vision that the Commission has. But what is very, very interesting is this dimension of circular valorization of waste streams, because basically they can become in a short term one really reliable and sustainable source of biomass, so contributing to the objectives that the Commission has and to the vision. And finally, there are some transversal topics in which you can identify something that maybe you cannot put in the other areas. I don't know if also, I mean, the colleagues from iCULTURE, if you want to pick something. Yeah, so basically the policy, the collection of data, and this is something that also emerged very, very clearly from the discussion, are still very hot topics. Yeah, I think I will also enter. And with regards to the data, of course, is very important if you are producing data with your data models, tools, with your projects, to share this information. So this will provide an answer. And to concentrate on the solution and the recommendations. And I think
saw
it's
that
also...
Elena, sorry,
Go ahead.
Susa, I saw that Elena wrote in the chat, cooperate instead of repeat and disperse. So there is a specific point, in fact, in the Myra board, a specific need, which is stakeholder engagement. So I added this solution, Elena, just to let you know. And I think that this is a bit the role of IABA and also EU4Algae, to try to cooperate. So I really invite everyone to join the networking board and to keep in contact. I saw that IABA is also interested in collaborating with us, so we will for sure follow up.
I also would like to hear maybe the voice of someone that would like to add something, someone that maybe was not on stage but can add something relevant. Of course, very, very briefly, so we can have hear a couple of voices. So if someone would like to speak, feel free. In any case, I think that, okay, Ricardo.
I just wanted to point out that both in Spain and Portugal, there is a national policy. National policies are being developed for dealing with rugulopterics. And in Spain, this is, of course, the invasion there started earlier. They have already a local in the southern Andalusia, and also a national one. And in Portugal, it's being promoted right now. So we are looking forward to deal with the problem. It's mainly getting rid of it, but there's also room for valorization of the biomass. Thank you.
That's great. Many thanks. If anyone else would like to say a word, otherwise, we will, again, I repeat that we will keep this board open, because I see that many people now are about to leave. I don't see any hand raised. So Valentina, I think we can go to the conclusion.
Yes, so I said the Miro board will be open. I see people still writing.
Yes,
so it's,
I don't know if we want to stay 5 minutes more, we can stay.
Yeah.
I mean, so we can just maybe we can stay for the one that can stay. For the other, I would like to really thanks all our now I give the floor, but before everybody leaves, I would like to really thanks all our speakers, the partners, the organization team, and I hope that you will be in contact with us with the iCULTURE project, because we will organize other workshops like this one in other topics, like for instance, the exploitation of waste streams. So what is needed from a research point of view, from policy and from business to market side. So thanks everybody, and I give the floor to Esther.
Hello. It's just in case people are not reading the chat, I would just like to repeat what I already wrote in the chat, because it's very important to help with the solutions for a lot of the problems that were highlighted in most of the talks, which were the lack of data, or perhaps insufficiency of the data, and incorrectness of the data, of the information. So I'm working on some tasks in collaboration with Eurostat, who are also very concerned about the quality and the quantity of their own data. And so the aim is to improve the reporting of algal production, algal harvesting, the clarification of methods. And as part of this, I am reaching out to all of you and any other stakeholders that you are aware to gathering expert input to help in providing support to Eurostat for them to improve knowledge, awareness of the problems, and the accuracy and consistency of the information. It's mostly due to the countries themselves, not to Eurostat. It's basically they collect the reporting, the data that's reported by the countries, but they can put pressure on different countries if they are aware of the problems on the information that's reported from each country, right? So we need to help in identifying, well, the data from this country have this problem, data from this country has this problem, the data everywhere have these problems, etc. So I would really appreciate if anyone interested could be involved in this, in helping in this effort. And what I would need from you is a short consultation, so a brief interview, on a date at your convenience, and completing a short questionnaire on information that is relevant for your activities and your expertise. And so for this, if you could please share the contact, your contact or the relevant person that should be contacted from your association, company, institution, or whoever is. It could be many people from the same institution or organization if different people are aware of different problems. So my email is available in the chat. My name is Esther
Did you put it also in the networking, or do we have to?
I did it.
Okay, that's great.
So
Perfect.
it's also in the networking board, Esther. So everyone will have access also here to your email in case to reach out.
So a lot of your information exists. The problem that the people involved in the data are not aware of the information that already exists. So we need to make this connection. There's a lot of experts here in this meeting that have a lot of information that the statistics people should be aware of. So let's all get together and help in providing some solutions that will help the general state of the art in this field. Okay, thank you. So my name is Esther Serrão from the University of Algarve in Portugal, but I'm working for Eurostat.
That's absolutely great. I see that already Laura put her contact, so you can get in contact. And Laura basically is from Eufragi, so she can really facilitate also this process. And maybe we can think about organizing something even together in the future to really facilitate and shorten this gap between data provider and data promoters or data aggregators. I think that really we need to go, because I see that, I mean, some people already went away. And so again, many thanks everybody, many thanks to FVA team also for the great organization. And so let's keep in contact for the next activities.
Thank you, everyone. I will send to each participant presentations and also the link to the Miro board, so you can continue contributing for at least 1 week and share with your colleagues. Thank you again.